Inter-unit coordination. It means we need to coordinate with other PNP unit for operational purposes. 1. Personal coordination or by official representative. Team leaders of local police unit operating outside their territorial jurisdiction and national support units shall coordinate personally or through an official representative with the police regional, provincial, or city police office. Within those jurisdictions, the operational is to conducted. If you are going to conduct a operation outside your territorial area of responsibility, you need to coordinate personally with other police unit to conduct a operation. Number 5.2, coordination by filing coordination form. Prior to the launching of the operation, except in cases where the formal in-writing inter-unit coordination cannot be made due to the nature and or urgency of the situation, such as, but not limited to, cross-jurisdiction pursuit operation. Coordination shall be made formally using the prescribed coordination form, which shall be filed with the concerned operation center of the police regional, provincial, or city office. Are going to conduct a operation in that area, you need to submit a inter-unit coordination. But there are the exception. If the operation is made due to the nature and or urgency, like hot pursuit operation. Coordination by practical available means of communication. In cases where formal inter-unit coordination is not feasible, the police unit concerned shall endeavor to notify the territorial police office through any practical available means of communication at any time during the operation, and if not possible, shall accomplish and furnish the territorial office a written incident report immediately after the termination of the operation. The operation, write a report to inform the other police unit that you conduct a operation in that area. Rule number 6. Requirements of police operation. 6.1. Basic requirements. Police operation like arrest, search and seizures, checkpoints, roadblocks, demolition and civil disturbance management shall be conducted as follows. With the marked police vehicle, led by a police commission officer, rank lieutenant, police colonel, and police major, with personnel and prescribed police uniform or attire. 2. Use of megaphones and similar instruments. During actual police intervention operation, the team leader shall use peaceful meaning including the use of megaphones or any other similar instruments to warn or influence the offenders or suspects to stop and or peacefully give. Use megaphone to warn the offender to stop. Number 7. Use of force during police operation. 7.1. Use of excessive force prohibited. The excessive use of force during police operation is prohibited. However, in the lawful performance of duty, a police officer may use necessary force to accomplish his mandated task of enforcing the law and maintaining peace and order. Excessive force is not allowed, but there is reasonable force. We can use reasonable force if necessary to accomplish his task. 7.2. Issuance of verbal warning. The police officer must first issue a verbal warning before he could use force against an offender. As far as practicable, the verbal warning shall be in the dialect that is known to the offender or in the national language. Basically, the verbal warning shall consist of the following: the police officer identifying himself, his intention, and what he wants the offender to do. If the offender is a foreigner, the verbal warning shall be done in English language, followed by a demonstrative act of the police officer intent. The verbal warning shall be done in a loud and clear manner. Before going to arrest the suspect, inform the suspect that he is violating the law and you are a police officer, and use dialect that known by a suspect. Non-issuance of verbal warning when accusable. The failure to issue a verbal warning is excusable in cases where threat to life or property is already imminent, and there is no other option but to use force to subdue the offender. Warning is excusable in cases where threat to life or property is already imminent, but we can inform the suspect of his right after the arrest. 7.4 Use of non-lethal weapon. When suspect is violent or threatening in that less physical measures have been tried and deemed inappropriate, a more extreme but not deadly measures can be used such as baton, truncheon, pepper spray, stun gun, and other non-lethal weapon to bring the suspect under control or effect the arrest. Point 5. Application of necessary and reasonable force. During confrontation with the armed offender, only such necessary and reasonable force should be applied as will be sufficient to overcome the resistance put up by the offender, subdue the clear and imminent danger posed by him, or to justify the first act under the principle of self-defense, defense of relative, or defense of danger. If the suspect is dangerous, we can use the firearms under self-defense and can use violence if necessary. Point 6. Factors to consider in the reasonableness of the force employed. A police officer, however, is not required to afford offenders attacking him the opportunity for the fair or equal struggle. The reasonableness of the force employed will depend upon the number of aggressors, natures and characteristics of the weapon used, physical condition, size, and other circumstances to include the place and occasion of the assault. The police officer is given the sound discretion to consider these factors in employing reasonable force. 7.7 Responsibility of the police officer in charge of the operation. The police officer who is in charge of the operation shall at all times exercise control over all police personnel in the area of operation and shall exhaust all possible means to apply the necessary and reasonable force to protect lives and properties during armed confrontation. Police officer have a control over the situation. So always protect the life, not only the innocent but also a suspect. 1. Use of firearm when justified. The use of firearm is justified if the offender possesses imminent danger of causing death or injury to the police officer or other person. The use of firearm is also justified under the doctrines of self-defense, defense of the relative, and defense of the stranger. However, one who resorts to self-defense must face a real threat on his life, and the perils sought to be avoided must be actual, imminent, and real. Unlawful aggression should be present for self-defense to be considered as a justifying circumstances. Firearms under the self-defense if the police officer life is in danger or other innocent people. 8.2 Firing at moving vehicle prohibited but with exemption. A moving vehicle shall not be fired upon except when its occupant pose imminent danger of causing death or injury to the police officer or in any other person, and that the use of firearm does not create a danger to the public and outweighs the likely benefit of its non-use firearm unless the occupants pose imminent danger of the police. And you are not allowed to use the firearms if there's no danger. 8.3 Parameters to be considered in firing at moving vehicles. In firing at a moving vehicle, the following parameters should be considered. The intent of the suspect to harm the police officer or other person. The capability of the suspect to harm with certainly the police officer or other person, and accessibility or the prominently of the suspect from the police officer and other person. To fire them back if the suspect is using firearm and harming the police and other person. 8.4 Filing of an incident report after the use of firearm. A police officer who fires his service firearm or weapon during the confrontation with an offender or offenders must submit an incident report outlining the circumstances necessitating the use of his firearm. 8.5 Procedures after the armed confrontation. Immediately after the armed confrontation, the officer who is in charge of the operation shall secure the site of confrontation, take photographs to preserve the evidence, check whether the situation still poses imminent danger, evaluate the wounded to the nearest hospital including the suspect and the victim. Ensure that all persons who died on the spot are not moved from their original position. Arrested suspects should be kept in isolation. Conduct debriefing on all involved PNP operatives. Submit after operation report and ensure psychological stress counseling for all involved PNP operations. You need to submit an incident report why you use your firearm during a confrontation.